This week on the line, we are talking to the multi-talented Elizabeth Falkner.
Elizabeth has an extraordinary 30-year culinary career that spans from being a fine dining pastry chef to today creating her own date-derived distillate and making documentary films.
Not only is she known as a pastry chef, but also a savory chef and a pizza competition champion. Also, you may have seen her on many Food Network competitions. She's such a badass. She's a sword-fighting, film-making, product-developing chef. Elizabeth Falkner on the
line. We're welcoming Elizabeth Falkner. No relation though
to the writer.
Seminal. No.
Actually, there is.
Really?
Yes, because William Faulkner, his first book was published misspelled with the U, and in fact comes from my side of the family.
Is that true?
Yeah. And so it just left it because it was too expensive to go back and change that.
history.
I thought Light in August was like my favorite. I mean, when I read that book, it made me cry. Wow. The other thing that made me cry was, watching the... Okay, sorry. You made me cry yesterday. I was watching your
The movie.
The reel for the what's it called? The trailer for your movie, and it made me cry last night.
Oh, you haven't seen the whole film yet?
No.
Okay.
It made me cry. The trailer made me cry. Right away. I was like, my wife was in the other room. She was like, "What is that you're watching?" I was like, "What are you talking about?" She's like, "It's sad." I was like, "Oh my god." I'm gonna talk to her tomorrow. Wow. Yeah. So most people know Elizabeth. I think about the queen, Elizabeth, the queen. Like it rolls off the tongue so lovely. Elizabeth is a TV personality, celeb chef, but
not really.
Most people that know you don't know you that way. But people that don't know you from television probably know you as that. No, not true. I don't know. But
I'll explain all that.
You started your career humping it out in San Francisco restaurants as a cook.
Yeah, I started at a little French bistro called Café Claude. I moved into fine dining at Moss's, which was like...
Yeah.
Moss's was like... Fleur de Lis and Moss's were the two best French restaurants in the city.
Best restaurants. And then pastry chef at Rubicon. So Rubicon was a seminal San Francisco restaurant that helped define a generation of upscale dining and solidify the city's standing as one of the world's great wine and food cities. And you were the pastry chef. And then that was like...
With Tracy Desjardins.
And San Francisco was...
Larry Stone.
At the time, like... San Francisco has the best pastry connection to farmers. There's a lot of great stuff about it. And it was a cool food city. There were good restaurants there. But like, New York was like the New York restaurant. And then you had to be it. And that restaurant maybe was... I don't know if it was the first. It was certainly one of the first restaurants that was really like, no, San Francisco is a world-class food city with restaurants that are at any level as good as anywhere else in the world. And that was.
But I mean, Drew Nieporn was the restaurateur there, and Tracy
he started at McDonald's though, so his first job was
a great New York restaurateur,
yeah.
And Tracy used to work for him at Montrachet, so there was that connection.
That New York San Fran connection.
Yeah, and then Larry Stone, our Somm, who was fantastic, trained everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody. And he had just come from Charlie Trotter. So it was quite a dynamic.
Yeah. Dynamic trio, quintuple. In the late 90s, Elizabeth left Rubicon, opened Citizen Cake, which was the first time I ever heard like saw, I tasted your food. It was amazing. I had the cakes, and the savory food there was just as good as the...
And you probably went to the one in Hayes Valley.
In the Hayes Valley, yeah, which was great. And it was there forever. But you moved that restaurant around a lot. You had a few iterations of it. And then you had a bunch of different...
Well, I mean, we started on 14th Street because my first business partner was a coffee roaster, and he as a hobbyist, and a great coffee roaster. He taught the guys at Blue Bottle how to roast coffee. And then we had that spot, but it was a little funky back in the day. It was behind Rainbow Grocery.
Yeah.
And in the late 90s, it was pretty rough around there. And then we moved to Hayes Valley, had it for 10 years there, but then the rent doubled, so that's why I had to move it again.
Got it. Okay, so then I'm almost done here, and then we'll... And that was an awesome time to be part of the San Francisco food screen. There was still room for creativity before the tech takeover kind of ran up prices and killed the city's energy, and let the homeless folks just take over the city. It's a disaster. Sad. You moved to New York City after that and opened a pizza joint in Brooklyn with amazing pizza, and you won a big award in Italy, which was a big deal. That was a big deal. That award in Italy was a huge thing because first of all, it was like spectacular. Secondly, I don't think they have women that won awards for pizza in Italy? Was that even a thing? And they certainly didn't have Americans.
Yeah, now they do, but that sort of changed the.
Yeah. There was like
Changed the game.
there were like Americans winning pizza awards in Italy, and then they were like, "And a woman? That's not a thing that they were," but they did. So because you did, because the pizza was delicious.
It's a great story. I can tell you.
Great
about.
pizza. And then the thing that's always impressed me from as an outsider, kind of looking at your career, is the success that you've seen in so many different arenas and so many different fields, that there's like an underlying creative drive that keeps you going and keeps you changing paths. But like if you're good at one craft, it translates kind of thing. And if you put your energy into it, and there's something special about that, because most recently you released a documentary film. So I guess I was listening to the thing, you went to film school. You're like a real you had like a kind of creative hippie film school. And now you've released a documentary film, so you're kind of coming full circle. And how am I doing?
Great. Is there any more?
I mean,
I'm waiting.
Sorry, we're closed, which is an amazing view of the struggles of the restaurant industry and impact of COVID pandemic. It's not easy to watch some of the suffering, and it makes me really question the choice of why we love food and restaurants and celebrate chefs, but we're not sure why we don't make it easier for us. Like the restaurant industry is something that we all love and we celebrate, but it's so hard to actually do it, and I wonder why we don't make it easier for me to open more restaurants. Basically, give me a tax break. And the hospitality industry employs more people than anyone outside of government in America, and yet the politics don't always work out so well for us. And people aren't really talking about that because it's not very popular to talk about, but you helped to shine some light on that. So I appreciate it. So thank you for that, for me.
You're welcome. And I think it is changing.
Yeah.
I think the pandemic did something that's making things change. Anything else on that?
No, welcome.
Okay.
Welcome, Tom.
Welcome, Elizabeth Falkner, everybody. Woo, crowd goes wild. I'm just happy you're here because I love you and I've always loved you, and we've got to do a lot of really fun things together. You forgot to mention, Dan, her illustrious competitive cooking career.
I just figured that everybody knows that because you've been on all the cooking shows and you've won all the cooking shows. But that was, for me, like, I don't know.
That's just a drop in her bucket
Yeah.
of her talents and skills and things that she does. So,
Well, I mean, it's funny that, like, I don't really think of myself as a celebrity chef because I really started in restaurants, and I think the term celebrity chef means something else, even though people do say, oh, that's a celebrity
You
chef.
have a personality.
I think
that
of Amanda
shines
as a
through.
celebrity chef.
No, but that's
I
not
have a
true.
lot
She
of
started out in the
restaurant
restaurants as
as
well.
well. Yeah, so
But she's like a regular on a series, you know, like I'm somebody who's like,
She makes her living
I'll play that game.
from working in television. You make your living from working in television right now, not producing food. Or you no?
a little bit.
She's like, no, I don't make a living.
I wish my whole living was from that.
Yeah.
Not possible.
Well,
right
and
now.
that's a good point because it's really hard. It's a very small crowd that makes
Money,
success
yeah.
out of ongoing success out of food television.
Interesting.
But
and
we've had a lot in that arena.
We've had so much fun in the competitive space, especially the food fight that we had one time.
We need to talk about that. So
Why can't I see that? I want to see that.
I know. I don't think anybody. We
doesn't
don't have
live
it.
in the
That's for
library
sure.
there.
So Elizabeth and I have competed on many different things. You can talk about what you competed on, but in particular, we were on a series called Next Iron Chef, and that was in 2012, the Redemption series. Which meant that we had both competed before, and everybody who was involved in it was competing again.
Yeah, to try to get the title.
There was a very much underlying patriarchy in the room. I don't know how to really say it, like misogyny, and there was a lot of stress that needed to be released. And I don't know, it was myself, Elizabeth, and Dusky Estes, and I don't know who started it, why it started.
I think we premeditated it a little bit.
Bit.
Before we had to go on, we said, probably Dusky said we should have a food fight. And I was like,
Well,
okay.
there was some politics going on that were really frustrating. And we wanted to just, I don't know.
We just picked up that ricotta and it started flying.
We
Really?
just started throwing ricotta cheese at each other. And, production does not like that.
No, 'cause it was
Television
a
production
big
doesn't like a big
No,
fat
they don't
mess.
like a mess.
They don't also like you doing something that they haven't told you to do.
Yeah.
And we had the most amazing food fight on the set of Next Iron Chef.
And it was awesome because like somebody had to be dismissed, right?
Yes.
But everybody we had so much fun. It was
had
like
so
the
much
best way
fun.
to like go out on a.
That's what it was. There
on
was
an
so much
episode.
pressure that day because somebody was going home or multiple people were going home. I can't remember what was happening. And we were just like, we weren't happy with the results. It was so much pressure. And we're like,
I think it was after our cook though, right? Like we
It
cooked
was. We
and then we
cooked.
started a food fight.
We cooked our dishes were taken away, and then we started the food fight. And it released so much pressure, and we remembered why we were there, because those things are not real. Competition cooking on television, yes, it's real. You actually cook in that amount of time, but it's not real life as a chef, you know, and we weren't doing what we love to do. We were competing against each other.
I think we had to use like cereal or something to make, you know, it's like it's always like it's already hard enough to cook,
Right.
But then like let's see what else we can do. Let's make them run through, you know, rings of fire kind of stuff, you know.
Yes.
So
I've just been such a just like universally consistent failure that I stopped doing it. I was like, I cannot
I
cook
keep failing.
in 30
I still
minutes.
do it.
I don't want to cook in 30 minutes. And I love cooking with people and the idea of competing against them. And then I just lose every time. And I hate losing so much.
yeah.
And it's so terrible.
I'm
I'm a
in
terrible
your
loser.
same boat, but I keep doing it.
Yeah, but
so
you're-
I don't know
you
what
always-
my problem
you're
is.
text me, are you doing
when
this?
you lose
Why
so
am I doing
elegantly.
this?
When I lose, I look like one of those petulant. No one wants to be a sore loser on TV, and I'm that guy where I'm like, I should have won, and then it's
I guess
terrible.
I'm so used to losing that I've just lose with grace.
I have done
I'm a
so
graceful loser.
many, yeah.
My new book.
I've done so many of them, and sometimes I'm like, I know where I might have made some mistakes or whatever, or like I could have done something better. I could have added another texture if I only had like 30 more seconds or
Right,
whatever.
the hindsight.
all that stuff. And I do like it very much. I have very much fun doing it because I know that it's a fleeting moment, and I might as well just make the best of it. And I actually, the last show I competed on, I had so much fun. I like timed everything perfectly. I was very aware of the 20-minute cook.
What
I
show
felt
was
like
that?
I made a really great dish, and this is the hardest part for me. I felt like I made probably the best dish I've ever made on food competition on television, and I was dismissed. And I was like, I have no idea why. I mean, I really have no idea why. And it was just like, it was a surprise way that they did the judging. I didn't like that very much because that wasn't how it was sold to me. And so I was really frustrated about it. I was like, oh, that might be the last one I do because I can't.
Right.
What am I supposed to do? I can't go anywhere saying,
Right.
I made a perfect dish and I know it.
Right.
But I will say that not to unveil the veil or whatever they say, but the nature of food television has definitely shifted from these are talented individuals and then it was like, now we're going to throw a monkey wrench and give them Cracker Jacks to make their, and you're like, well, that's a weird ingredient. And now it's a little bit more like extra personality driven, and you find folks that maybe don't have the chops cooking along.
Right.
And maybe so it's kind of like, I'm kind of an old OG. I actually am at a different level here, and I'm not competing. I'm competing for like who's a better personality on TV. Which if I wanted to take that path, maybe that would have been a great career, but not me.
Yeah. I mean, I really do miss the Iron Chef days
me
where
too.
people actually, where the directors, put some money in watching people cook and cameras to watch people cook. And I feel like that's kind of missing in a lot of productions these days is we're not really learning something. My mom said something about the show I was on, and she said, she goes, I can't really watch a lot of this because I don't learn anything.
Yes.
And so that's missing for me right now. And that's something that I'd like to someday tackle if I still have enough life in me. And Amanda knows this. I was talking about years ago doing some other kind of network, and now I'm on the board of the James Beard Foundation, and then we've been sort of talking about different ways to look at productions and stuff. So hopefully something will come out of that one of these days. I don't think it's a long shot. I think we need to come back into, I miss like,
Stand and stir.
I just miss
teaching.
like a lot of like even,
Yes.
the Julia Child format or even Emerald, like just people talking about food and
I was talking
it
to
really being about food.
It being about food, and
And
we
not a game
luckily
show.
get really good feedback about Chopped, and we meet young people who.
But Chops is a fun show. It's a great
Yeah.
show.
Yeah.
It's competitive, but we meet people who grew up watching it, and we talk a lot about. I know it makes me feel so old at this point, but then we talk a lot about food terminology, food, we talk about ingredients, we talk about how to treat them. And so people do say, I've learned how to cook through watching you. So we make it a point to talk about
And you're
food.
watching the cook,
Yes.
like right in front of you.
Yes.
So
And
it's a good show that way.
so we feel proud of that part of it because it's not just a sporting event and you're just tearing each other apart. We're talking about food throughout the whole thing.
It's one of the more traditional
Yes.
formats where it's actually people are actually cooking and then you're tasting
Yes.
the food. And the other day I was talking to a producer about a TV show idea, and he was like, hey, we could have sold that 10 years ago. Now they don't want to buy that, blah blah blah. And he was like, I'm a food television producer, and he's been doing it for 30 years, something like that. And he was like, the other day I walked into my living room and my wife, who loves the Food Network, loves watching Food Network, she was sitting on her phone scrolling through, and I was like, what are you doing? She was like, oh, I'm looking for recipes and I'm watching people cook. He was like, man, I'm out of a job, like, because we don't need to look at the television for that. And so we see the creativity shifting, and I'm like, man, if I want to do a cooking show, I want to do it on TikTok. Like, I want to be able to do exactly what I want to do.
Get it out there to everybody.
And I want to be able to do whatever format I want without having to worry about it having enough viewership to be financially supported by blah, blah, blah.
Or a network telling you what to do.
Yeah.
You get to do whatever you want.
I don't want anybody to
I
tell
think
me
if
what
you
to
do a series on it called Braised, just check in every day for like just go see how it's progressing.
Low and Slow.
Yeah.
It's called Low and Slow. Your new show, Dan, is called
We're
Low
calling this show
and Slow.
Fermentation.
Because I don't really like that
never
everything
ends.
has to be so fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's part of the culture in America that's spreading around the world that I just can't stand. It's like, why does everything have to be hacked and fast food and why is spending time it's like how we were brought up. It's like everything was the Jetsons when we were little kids, and like you don't like. I love mid-century modern houses, but I hate that the kitchen was sort of a forgotten piece of it because it's like, who wants to spend time cooking? I'm like, everybody should spend time cooking.
Although I do like the galley kitchen when I'm like, no one talk to me. Just close the galley door. All right. I got a chicken in here I'm working on.
Is that why every apartment in New York has a galley kitchen? Because New Yorkers don't want to talk to
I don't wanna
anybody.
talk to you.
Leave me alone.
Right.
But wait, back to you. Because to circle it full circle, Sorry We're Closed, the documentary. I want you to tell everybody about it who hasn't heard about it. But you, Dan was saying you had gone to film school. Not only have you touched upon all of your talents, but you were in the front of the house, back of the house, savory, sweet, television. Like everything you've done has been a part of every facet of the art world, really. I mean, you're an artist. I think of you as an artist always, and you're not even close to being done, and you're always trying something new. And we have to talk about your new product because it has to do with Amaro, which I love. I'm sitting here eating your gummy bears, which are absolutely delicious. And, maybe we need to talk about what you don't do. But let's first talk a little bit about Sorry We're Closed because it made Dan cry. I was happy to be a little bit of a part of the documentary, and I think it was really important.
Yeah.
And you got to see a lot of heartache, but now you sound really positive about the changes that have been made since COVID and since then.
On the Line podcast is brought to you by Danny Boy's famous original pizza. From downtown Los Angeles and Westwood, Los Angeles, Danny Boy's Pizza started with a singular goal of producing the best slice of pizza that we could possibly create. We make New York-style pizza with the finest ingredients, built by a team of fun-loving, like-minded, culinary-driven individuals producing slices of pizza that are not going to empty your wallet, but they will fill your belly. Come down to Danny Boy's and say hi. I am on the line, cooking them up for you, as well as on the line with Amanda Freitag here in the studio for you.
Well, I think, the documentary came about because I think like all of us at the beginning of the pandemic were like, when you started doing your Easy AF, and people our social media was like helping us kind of try to figure out what are we supposed to do if you're not in a restaurant, or if you're in a restaurant, how in the world you're going to deal with that. And it just sort of was like, I was talking with the director, Pete, before we started shooting about doing a film about if chefs were able or incapable of taking care of themselves in crisis. And then the pandemic hit, and we were like, oh, well, this is like the ultimate crisis. We got to go out and film this. And so I just started thinking, like, I want to talk to a bunch of different people about if this is actually something good for them. Like, what are they learning from this sort of pause? And it was great because I feel like it wasn't just all, it's not, I mean, there's very sad parts in it. Probably the saddest part is my own story came out about how I had to give up my restaurants in San Francisco after the stock market crash. I wasn't even expecting that to happen in the film, but it ended up being a good, like, here's, shit happens in the world.
Right.
And you got to, and every day in a restaurant, shit's happening constantly, and you deal with it. And chefs are really good at dealing with crisis. And so it was a good way to go out and sort of take the temperature of everybody and see what people were doing. Not necessarily about their pivoting, but like, I feel like a lot of people said, oh, I'm spending more time with my family.
Yes.
I've changed my hours. I've changed the way I do my business. And so I felt like what came out of that is actually quite positive.
Change the culture.
Yeah. And like, I was talking with the Beard Foundation back then. I had just finished up being the president of Women Chefs and Restaurateurs, and we ended up closing that organization kind of just in perfect timing, because it would have been really hard to raise money in the middle of all that. And but we were talking at the foundation about, I'm so excited to be on that board now because I've been a member of James Beard Foundation since I first started cooking. So in the early days of it, and then I've seen it evolve in some, crazy times of the way it was ran by other people, and to fast forward to today. And I feel like it's in such a good space of talking with lobbyists and talking with politicians about tax. Looking at overall, like, better ways to do insurance and benefits. Like, these things are this is what we're talking about as, like, the voice of American chefs. And I feel like it used to be like you would go to the James Beard house and all the chefs had to pay for your crew and all your stuff, right?
Yes.
That's not the way it is anymore. Like, you go cook at Platform, the new space at Pier 57, and you get a stipend, and it's like it's like dramatically different. It's a whole different...
Look, they gave me a scholarship to go to the Culinary Institute in like 95 or 6 or something like that. So, from my experience, even though I understand that there was like an exploitive nature of it that people felt way back.
Yeah.
That wasn't my experience. And I was proud and excited to give back because I felt like it was positive back then as well. But I understand the idea of being like, in order to be, exampled as great by this French chef organization, even though it's an American guy, whatever, that's what it felt like.
Yes.
You got to go and cook here, and then they're going to sell tickets, and they're going to retain the money. But that didn't feel that way to me. I always thought of it as kind of like something.
Well, I mean, I can tell you just like everything from scholarships to awards and the way it's all, it's quite intricate. It's not the organization of the past. Everything
That's good to hear.
Is so crystal clear that there's really good systems in place, really good education just on our board, and then all of our programs are. Anyway, I'm very excited about what came out of the COVID and the film and all that stuff. And our film we went to several film festivals, and we got the Best Documentary Feature of Pasadena Film Festival. So that was sweet. And it's on Apple TV and Amazon Prime. And
was that was being a filmmaker? I know if you went to school for it, was that something that you kind of had aspired to continue with? And was it something that you want to continue with now?
In a lot of ways. I feel like I feel like as a chef person or an artist or whatever, I'm actually trying to look at the bigger picture and where things are missing and what the problem is. And that's why I cook certain things. So making a film isn't that weird to me because I was really trying to solve a problem. I was trying to solve a couple problems. I was working on writing a book, and the message that I wanted to get out so badly came out in the film, and I don't need to put it in a book now.
Right.
And then, which was, I lost restaurants, and it was really painful for me because I took it so personally. I just was like, there were so many other things at play. It wasn't because I was mismanaging it.
This was Orson and Citizen Cake.
Yeah.
And Orson was like so I remember the anticipation for this spectacular
Did you ever come in?
Yeah, I never went in.
You never went there, right?
I never went to Orson. No.
Oh my God,
No.
it was so cool.
And it was huge, expensive, fancy,
very huge restaurant and kind of crazy, but
great.
But we opened it and who knew? Like we opened it in May 2008, and then when the stock market crash happened, it was like everybody abandoned the entire neighborhood.
I signed a lease for this pizzeria
Brutal.
in a place that was like Penn Station busy, right before the pandemic, in the base of a big corporate like building in the center of downtown.
Yeah.
And then it was like, hey, by the way, you have it was like tumbleweeds and like nothing. Zero. Nobody. There's no one there, and you put so much into it. There, we discount how much luck when we see the success around us. It's like,
right.
Yes.
man, there's so much
So
good
true.
luck involved.
So much
true.
luck, and it's like the team. We all know that the team is everything. But
Yes.
if in your like the head team, like if your partners if you don't see eye to eye, I mean it's just so crazy. I mean it's impossible.
I come to the thing now where I'm like, I'm either I'm in charge 100% and I get 100%, or I like have to be completely complacent and like I'm like I'll just help because if any time that I feel passionate about something and there's a disagreement, it's too painful to watch that. It's too challenging for me.
Yeah, we had John and Vinny here, and we were talking to them, and I'm always in awe of their partnership.
Right.
And I think more than not, restaurant partnerships fall apart than succeed. And so
Oh my God.
there's a magic in what they do, and it's a really difficult thing to, have that chef brain and then, the investor brain and then, the finance guy is coming in the kitchen and saying, you must cook this. You must put this on your menu.
Right.
I mean, it's been done.
Or like Suzanne Goen and Carolyn Stein. I mean, that just blows my mind.
Yeah.
They're
partnerships that last 20, 30, 40 years, they're meant to be, obviously. But, it's a really difficult thing. Like you said, it's like, I don't want to have that argument. I want it the way I want it. You want to put your mark on it.
Especially when it's like my livelihood,
It's very important.
my ego is so much as
It's your
resting
story.
on it. And like
It's your
you
story,
want
though.
to put that shitty chicken on the menu, like zero chance I'm putting that guy like that. You putting that chicken on the menu is like you might as well stab me in the face. Obviously, in hindsight, you're like, well, that was embarrassing because I would have just been rich if I didn't argue with that guy.
Well, that's just it. I mean, and you're saying that you took so much of it personally, but how can we not?
Right.
Our identity is attached to every project we do. Our identity is that chef person, and you do take it personally.
And chef people make stuff happen. Like you're the person who's running around
Yes.
making sure all the stuff arrives and that
Yes.
it's being cooked right and that nobody's going to get food poisoning and that the
Taking care
bathrooms
of
are
your
clean.
team,
And
taking care of your team, making sure the marketing is going well. You're the face of it. You're showing up at events. You're doing all the things. You're doing the television. Of
you're the only
course-
person who knows how to make a croquembouche.
Right.
Right.
Of course, you're the only person who knows how to do that. But like, of course, you take it personally. Like I've had that struggle with myself, and so many scenarios where, I have a lot of colleagues that say, "Well, it's just business. Think of it as just business." Okay, yes, it's just business, but I put everything into that. My heart, my soul.
I mean, it's business, but it's also, I mean, I would say that restaurants are very much like, I mean, people go out for entertainment to dinner. And so I would say that they're also quite theatrical.
Yes.
I mean, it is like putting on a
show.
play every day. Maybe it's 2 shows a day, lunch and
Yes.
dinner. I mean, and it never stops. Like it just keeps going. And I would say it's also like a sport because it's so physical.
Yes.
And you've got to get that team rallied around scoring lots of goals all night.
You said earlier you were like you like solving problems. You made this film. There's a problem to solve. I feel like a restaurant that's like it's all
Problem
a house
solving.
of cards and problem solving.
Totally.
It's like every day, all day long, and the people that do well are the ones that thrive in that environment and are excited about. And it's overwhelming, but for the right personality type, that's like what drives you. You're excited to go in and figure out what unexpected thing I need to figure out how to fix today.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I think I remember when I ran that restaurant in the Upper West Side, I would talk to that crew every day about how we're so close to Broadway here, and this is like a Broadway show, but it's also like a soccer match. And I am somebody who played soccer until I was from 9 years old until I was 40. And so I very much think that going into lineup is exactly like going into a soccer game.
Yeah.
And that I need everybody to, play their position, which I think is what's really fun about it. It is like having like Ted Lasso every night in some way.
It's true. It's true. And for anybody who's not in the kitchen, lineup is that moment where you have a meeting with the team. You know, you meet with the front of the house, you know, you meet with the back of the house, you get everything ready for that evening, whatever the specials are, whoever's coming in, how many people are coming in all at the same time, you know, what kind of night is it going to be, what you have to put your thoughts around and wrap your head around the mental process. Okay, we're doing 300, we're serving 300 guests tonight, but they're all coming in 45 minutes, you know? Or, you
we
know,
need to pace that,
right.
know,
or
table
on a
of
day
8.
where it's like, okay, we're doing 500 and you know, we're getting everybody in at 5 o'clock. So it's a mental game. On the Line podcast is brought to you by Freitag cocktails. I'm so excited about these. Freitag, that's me. Friday in German, hello. Friday's a great day for a cocktail. We make them in a family-owned distillery in San Diego. Chef crafted cocktails, our own bitters, our own vermouth. We make Manhattan, Negroni, Margarita. What else could you ask for? Go to freitagcocktails.com, order them today, and they'll be delivered to your door. Cheers! Right? And there's so much about our industry that is heavy stress and, you know, heavy, an element where you need to work hard, play hard, right? And that's always been the thing I think that people love about chefs, but it's also been the thing that's destroyed chefs at times.
That's
you know,
right.
there's a bad element there. You know, how else do you
It's a
release
little
all
wild.
that adrenaline, right? You know, it's like, it is just like a sport, you know, there's adrenaline after. What do you do with that? You go back into the game the next day, but how do you release it at night?
You get shit-faced.
Right.
What do you mean?
But
what are you talking about? Obviously. And then you
Or
fall
are you
asleep.
like, you know, like that's something I've been really,
yes,
I mean, yes.
it's a different culture now, though. It really
It
is.
is a different culture now, and I'm definitely an OG that way too.
Yeah.
Like I like my wine, I really do, and I like cocktails. But I also like, and I'm kind of preached this to people, and I have to listen to myself too. That in this business, you have to take care of yourself in the way of like doing something physical outside of what the physical job. So something like yoga, or I didn't even find yoga until after I stopped playing soccer. But then I also found some martial arts. But anything, getting outside, even just walking several miles would be very helpful for people in the business, just to clear your head.
Yeah.
Just get a little bit of vitamin D from a natural source. You know?
Yeah.
But when I was a young line cook and a sous chef, I would roll out of bed an hour before I had to be in the kitchen because I was exhausted. Mm-hmm. You're on your feet, 16 hours a day. Do I want to go to the gym? Hell
Not
no.
really.
It was a different time. And now you see chefs that are bodybuilders and they're showing off their bodies and they're showing off their workouts and they're putting it out there on social media of what they do, and it's such a different world, and it makes sense, right? It's such a physical job, and if we want to last in this job,
right,
we have to make this body last.
And also like what you're eating, because it's truthfully, like a lot of chefs, we don't have great
I lived on duck scraps and butter. That was like the
cupcakes.
Everything. Yeah.
Yes, the amount of bread and
I went to the doctor to get my cholesterol checked, like this a bunch of years ago, and I did blood, and they called me up, and she's like, I need you to come into the office and talk to me. And at the time, it was during the kind of the AIDS epidemic was alive and well. And the only thing they couldn't tell you on over the phone was that if you were HIV positive, because people were taking their lives or something. So I was like in tears. I was like, oh my God, you were telling me that and she's like, no, you idiot. Your cholesterol is so high that I think you might be dead. Like, you have to come in right now and get your, she's like, you are probably having a heart attack now. I was like, okay.
We need blood thinners.
Need you to calmly come in.
She's like,
don't be stressed on your way.
So but it's like, I was eating butter and duck and butter. It's hard to beat.
I mean,
I know.
It's my favorite
incredible.
thing in the world.
But you have always stayed really physically fit, and we love watching you do your martial arts and your sword and your.
I just taught a sword
I
class
saw that on your
at
Instagram.
my gym.
It looks so cool.
I did a lot of. So I picked up this fitness form based in martial arts called. The trainer is a friend of mine in San Francisco, and I started doing it back then. And she calls it Junction, and it's her own fitness thing with big wooden swords, And it's a blast because and during the pandemic, I organized randomly, like every couple weeks, I'd send out a text thread to a bunch of people and say, I'm going to be at Holmby Park in Beverly Hills and we're going to do swords. And it was great because we all had to be wearing masks anyway. But we were outdoors and just doing something totally different. And I was teaching people the sword form. So I did it at my gym the other day, and I did a couple classes in New York when I was there too. That I call it swords and knives. Chefs like knives, and we also can play with swords.
You don't have the sword tattoo or the fire and the swords, no.
I just carry a little tiny
Yeah, okay, a little.
knife.
That's for self-defense.
The sword is made of wood. Let me just clarify.
Yeah, it's
to
wood.
everybody involved.
But I also have done a performance art piece where with my real sword, because when I was in New York, I studied another form called Yado, which is very much looks like Shogun.
Oh, wow.
It's an ancient samurai form of sword, and you can only use real swords in that class.
Oh, wow.
And you're not allowed to ever look at the sword, and you have to be able to pull it out of its little case. I forgot what that's called, and then
Sheath?
put it back into it. It's got to
Without
looking, and it's so scary. I learned so much in that class though about a true martial art
And the trust that you have to have in yourself.
And my trainer was so good. And anyway, I took the real sword and made it into a performance art piece where I build a croquembouche, a giant one, and then come out in a cat suit and annihilate the croquembouche, which is very much a self-portraiture of my love-hate relationship with pastry. And anyway, I did it at Soho House in the Meatpacking District in New York, and I did it at Outside Lands in San Francisco on a big stage outside. Yeah. And then I did it for Guy Fieri's birthday cake last year.
Oh, nice. That's right. I remember that.
And he had no idea what was going on. He was like, I don't know what I like better, the performance, the cake, or the outfit.
But this is what I'm saying about you. There's always something interesting and new that you're doing, like just even doing a performance arts piece, and I think there's so much of that in chefs. We talk about that so much, right? The door opens and that's the theater, becoming the chef that has to bring people into the restaurant. You're that salesperson, you're the clown, you're the person that does everything, and I think that I don't know what next. We're going to talk in a second about Amaros. I dabble in bottled cocktails because I love...
Yeah.
You don't dabble in bottled cocktails. You make a delicious bottled cocktails.
But
you sell them and they're available nationwide.
That's correct.
That's not dabbling.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're in a dabbler.
Right. When I'm very successful, I'll say that.
I dabble.
I dabble.
I dabble in pizza.
Well, let's talk about special gummy
bears.
Gummy bears. And I love to dabble in making products, and I feel like there's something when you're not in a restaurant, you and I are not physically cooking in restaurants and serving the public, that you want to somehow get a piece of what you're doing into their homes or into their hands or into their mouths.
Yeah, and it's funny with the gummy bears. They're called Behave, and the founder came to me and said, I understand you're really good at doing formula stuff. I want to make some candy without sugar. And I was like, that's a good challenge. And I do love a good challenge. And I'm also somebody who's done a lot of side work, even while running restaurants in ideations, but also prototyping. And I had this really great job in like the early 2000s when I had Citizen Cake in Hayes Valley. And then I was like, it was kind of cool because it was like I was... what do you call it? I was like secretly interviewed. I didn't even know I was being interviewed by I probably thought it was media, but it was actually a company called Molino Bianco from.
I thought you were going to tell us you were in the CIA, and I was going to be like, she's so cool.
No, but this was a cool job. So they secretly interviewed me. I got the job, and I ended up working for Molino Bianco, which is the sister company to Barilla Pasta. So located headquarters in Parma, Italy. And I had to work with food scientists and come up with a better product line and also work on what was the current Starbucks lineup because that was their end client. So the Italians were paying for this whole amazing production of us going around the country doing R&D, tasting all the American
Great gig
stuff.
If you can get it.
Yeah. And then we were in Italy and we try all the fun stuff there. And then the main part of my job was to improve what that lineup was at the time at Starbucks, but then also come up with the future lineup.
Wow.
So that was like amazing. And I also got to work with enzymes and food scientist, and in that company in particular, they don't use anything artificial. It's like biscuit making, and Italians are pretty strict about ingredient panels.
Yeah.
And but I mean, it was. Are you kidding me? I got to fly to Parma all the time and Milan, and it was just a dream.
I also think what you're saying is interesting to anybody who wants to get in the food industry and doesn't want to work in a restaurant, because when we all first started, you were a chef or a pastry chef, and that was it.
Right.
There was nothing about R&D and flavor science and any of those things. I was just at the Culinary Institute of America, and one of the students told me they worked at McCormick for their internship, and she said, I want to go back and do that. I want to do R&D. And it blew my mind, and I envied her. I almost wanted to start where she was, go back. And I didn't know about any of that. A lot of those jobs didn't exist, to put flavors together, to learn about the science of enzymes and how to make things shelf stable. And, the product world is fascinating.
It's so cool. And we had there's a company still up in the Bay Area that used to hire a couple different chefs when I first started cooking, I would get called into those projects, and that really helped me, I think, get that Barilla
Lior does that with Nestle. Have you ever done one of those jobs? He gets a flavor panel together. And
no, I haven't. He does them.
From Laboit, the best spices on earth. You could get an amazing mashup of spices made by Amanda Freitag through Laboit.
Collaborated with Lior.
But those jobs are incredible. I did a job with.
They're also really intense. I mean, they're not like cooking in a restaurant.
But it gets you thinking about. It gets you thinking about like where food is going, and really in a meaningful and impactful way. How in a restaurant you feed a few hundred people a day, and these are opportunities to impact thousands, or if not hundreds of thousands.
But also,
of meals.
just FYI for anybody thinking about it, it's really different to make like a batch of stuff at home as it is to make it in a restaurant, and then scaling it on a massive level.
Yes.
Because formulations change. You don't just like start multiplying it. It's kind of a different. Depends on like the lines of production and baking and all those things. Like I've been in some really cool factories where I've seen like even like the apple pies for McDonald's, like the long football field that it has to go through with the perfect release of cinnamon at a certain time. It's been encapsulated at the right temperature. And it's crazy.
Well, I think like as a chef, I always used to kind of like have a little bit of a snooty attitude, and you'd go in the supermarket, you'd taste something, you'd think like, oh, I could do that better. And chances are, if you made one of them, you could make it better. You could make a great version of that like Twinkie in your house if you want to make one. But there's been a ton of money and energy and time, and it's not just because they're trying to make it as cheap as possible. Like there are production limitations that go into, and there's a lot of smart people that have put their energy and time into figuring out the best version of it. And so like I know I've failed miserably a bunch of times at consumer facing products because of that attitude where I'm like, I'm going to do it a different shape. And you're like, well, the reason it's the shape it is because that's
the packing
over
line.
the last 10,000,
and
I figured it out.
100 per minute or whatever.
Exactly. If you want to make your own packing line, then go right ahead and make your new shape.
But that's a perfect segue for me to tell you about what I'm really excited about, which is what I'm working on now.
Oh.
So this is my partner Heather and I have a new company called Tomorrow. It's T''Maro. And the word tomorrow comes from a play on word. So the ancient word for date and date palm in Hebrew and Arabic is tamar.
Happy Passover.
It's where the name tamara comes from. It's an ancient word, but it relates to the date palm and the date fruit. And so being from Southern California and Heather's from San Diego, we were talking about, after going to Sicily, we were talking about Amaros and how they're often too sweet for our palates, or like she loves Fernet. I don't really like that much menthol-y stuff.
Heather and I will get along.
And then I like a lot of different Amari out there. I loved it when Osteria Mozza used to have an Amaro cart, and they were bringing stuff back, and it all tasted like church and incense and weird and fun. And I love that mysticism and sort of wizardry around Amaro and the history of it. Monks making it, witches making it, whatever. It was like medicine at one time, and it's still kind of regarded
medicine
that way,
for the soul.
It's a digestivo, so it's intended for you to have after dinner or for whatever ails you. I like them very much in cocktails and in spritz. And then the way we started talking about it was like, oh, well, sometimes it's too sweet, or wouldn't it be cool if we, like, there is a company here in Southern California called Angelino Amaro, and that one's quite tasty, and it's wine-based. And it does have fennel and citrus notes. And I like the acidity from the wine in it, but I wanted to make one with a spirit. And so, and what we thought would be really cool is if we sweetened it with dates instead of sugar. Because I've been working in alternative sugar, but I'm a huge fan of, like, while I like working with chicory root and allulose and stuff like that, I really like, honey and dates and agave and stuff like that. That's just very tasty to me. But
and more naturally accessible and like something we know about. When you hear about chicory root fiber, I'm like, I don't know what that is, but when you say date, I'm like, I know what that is. That's sweet.
Yeah, and it's like I'm from Southern California. I remember going to the desert and having date shakes when I was a kid.
And they're spectacularly delicious dates.
Yeah,
fresh dates out
and
here
we use them in all of our restaurants, and I love all the different varieties, especially being back in Southern California and trying all the amazing varieties that grow here. And so anyway, we decided I made a whole bunch of different brews at home, and I still have all the.
These are wine based, or what's the
spirit based? So what happened in the middle of that was I was like, now why do we have to buy grape spirit or neutral grain spirit to make Amaros? That's what they're typically made of.
Right.
And I was like, doesn't anybody make date spirit? And so I fermented some, and we got it distilled, and we were like, it's actually really good.
So basically,
so we made
you brought us moonshine.
No, we work with a distiller.
Oh, okay.
And no, I would never do that. And
well, you would do that, but you wouldn't.
No, I wouldn't do that. Actually,
that.
Heather's the one who said, like, send that distiller thing back to Amazon.
If you get rid of the heads, and the tails, it's perfectly safe.
She doesn't want that in the house anymore.
No, we work with a distiller and up in Northern California, and anyway, this has been like, the candy took like a couple of years to come up with the formula for that. The Amaro the Amaro and the Spirit have taken about just over a year to come up with. And packaging is really exciting for us. We have a really cool bottle. It's all arriving actually from France right now. We ordered it's a stock bottle, but it's you'll love the shape. It's like that. And I'm
imagining Galliano meets the San Francisco Bank of
tall,
America pyramid.
But it's kind of like this. It's a really cool shape. Anyway, so we've got our label it's made from fallen date frond. So it's date palm that was going to go to landfill. And so we contracted an arborist, and we have all this palm material that we've turned into paper. And
is this it at all? So
this is the Spirit. I just brought little samples for you to try.
I just want to see the label.
So when is this something that you
It's coming out in June.
Oh. Coming out in June.
Just smell that.
How exciting. How will you sell it? Will you be selling it?
We have a distributor already, Pacific Edge, and we're selling it. We'll start here in California.
Can I put some of this in a cup and smell it?
I want to try that one.
And you're going to have to taste a little bit of the Spirit too. So this is like, 80 proof. So this is like tequila or
So are you the first person to ever make a date Spirit?
I'm positive that people have made it, probably historically.
The Egyptians were probably getting drunk on dates for sure.
But commercially, nobody's doing this right now.
I wonder why. Is it expensive or is it?
I have kind of a patented way I've started doing it, so.
At least she can't talk about it.
I'm excited.
She's very secretive.
It smells.
It's extremely smooth. Obviously, it's hot.
That's what everybody says.
From the alcohol, but it's really smooth. It's not scratchy or peppery, or it doesn't make me want to cough.
But it smells like tequila a little bit.
It does have a tequila vibe, right? Have you used this to make cocktails?
Yes, it's fantastic.
I bet.
Yeah, I just made a. Heather had me make a sidecar for her the other day with a touch of the Amaro in it, but using that as the base spirit. It works really. Think about it. Dates work really well with other things too. So yeah. That's just 100% 80 proof date spirit.
It's just 100%, 40% liquor.
It works 99% of the time, all the time.
It's so delicious, and it works really well. Like we have a cocktail that we call the Tamargarita. So it's an ounce each of white Blanco tequila and our eau de vie. This is an eau de vie.
Interesting.
And then a little bit of Tomorrow Amaro for the sweetener and lime juice. It's so good.
Sounds delicious.
And then it's great in a black Manhattan.
So you'll sell both. You'll sell the Amaro.
Both of these are
To
coming out.
margarita. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
To margarita. I love that.
Yeah, worry about it to margarita. Don't worry about it today.
It's so fun. And then we also...
Do you want us to do your marketing campaign?
So you started out with this. I'm sorry. You started out with I want to make Amaro.
Yeah, so I made about 9 different batches of different botanicals. And then we started tasting some really good tastemakers out there and spirit people on them, and sort of honed it into really 2, and then kind of just landed on this one.
Can I get, without being boring or annoying, 2 of my hallmark character traits.
Don't be you. No, I'm just kidding.
Amaro. So it's Italian Amaro. Botanicals. What are? Can you give me help me out a little bit to understand the history of Amaro? What are botanicals? When I see Chinar artichoke liquor, I'm like, why would anybody make liquor out of artichokes? What is the point?
Yeah.
You are not boring nor annoying. That's
not
an
at all.
amazing question, by the way.
Perfect question.
Yeah.
And here you get a little
God
sip
bless
of
you.
this too.
You're welcome. Yes.
Because also I could talk about Amaro all day.
Yeah.
And when you were saying the wizardry of it, what a lot of people don't know about me, and you probably know this because we've been around together, and I have a stock full of supplements and vitamins, and I'm really into wellness, and I'm really into food as medicine, and I'm really into, something like a digestive or an aperitivo. There's a reason for this. The history of why we eat or drink things. And this is really deep.
Passed down.
This is a deep, deep history of why you would drink this after dinner. It's not just because you want to keep getting boozy.
Right.
It's not just because it tastes good. There's a real reason.
I've got a great Amaro story.
There's a couple of reasons why something like this has been around for so long. So, yes, all of the botanicals are herbs. Whatever grows and
what's a botanical? Sorry.
Okay, so if you grew up in Switzerland or northern Italy versus southern Italy, you're going to have different botanicals, meaning you're going to have different herbs and spices and roots and in the south, you'll find more
pantry item flavoring agents like leaves that grow on trees that are used to spice
People
stuff.
weren't shipping stuff all over the place like today.
Yeah.
So
Herbs,
if you're in Sicily, you're going to put citrus in your Amaro.
Okay.
Because that's where all the great citrus is. If you're in the Alps, you're going to use, all kinds of alpine herbs and
if you're in Provence, you might use herbs de Provence.
Mint.
Literally
stuff like
pine and mint and
So botanicals are flavoring agents that are indigenous
flowers, it could be
to whatever area you are in. Indigenous.
And
there's a lot of all of the aromatics,
okay.
Yeah.
And then and then Amaro is liquor that's been fortified or spiced with those botanicals.
Yep. And then
sweetened.
Yeah, so...
Is it always spirit-based, or is it sometimes fortified wine-based?
Wine-based also.
It's also wine-based. And the difference there is one's distilled and one is wine that's been added distillate to?
You're just basically making tea with whatever liquid you have.
She's like, now you are being boring.
Not an infusion. Yeah,
okay.
Your infusion.
Yeah.
Okay. You're taking what you have and you're
But I feel like Amaro is something that you see, and they have these beautiful pictures of the labels. But then you're like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with it. Are you is it something you cook with, or you drink, or you?
Typically, it's just something you would sip on after dinner, or
sip it.
You also have to remember, think about when Coca-Cola and sodas were invented. They're basically the same idea as a concentrated syrup and adding carbonated. I mean,
so
it must
Coca-Cola.
have been so fun when people discovered carbonation.
Coca-Cola and
that must have been a blast.
Wild, wow, I'm gonna go to a
So
cafe and have
Coca-Cola
something
was an
bubbly.
Amaro. It was a cocaine fortified Amaro that's turned
Basically.
into a cuddly teddy bear you
think
give
about
your
it,
kids
all
for
of
Christmas.
But it was medicinal.
Same when you go to Europe and you might sip on these or have it on the rocks, but you could also put a little carbonated water in it and have a little spritz.
A little dab if you do.
Yeah, so that's where it all kind of...
I find this to be delicious, and I'm not like a licorice man, but I can taste a little bit of licorice on just the sides of my tongue.
Can you give us, without telling us everything, some of the main flavor profiles in here?
We're in Southern California, so a lot of citrus. And I wanted this to be, I don't really like to talk about, what's the recipe for this thing? Because it's really more about, I wanted people to, when you drink it, I want you to kind of feel like touching on the ocean, whether it's in Monterey or Southern California, or tips of the Sierras, a little bit of Yosemite, like some of the different aromatics that are around the state. And what I think agriculturally is so cool about this state is that we have a lot of stuff that's Mediterranean. So it's more like I wanted you to travel around the state with a sip of that. When
I close my eyes, there's a texture as well that I think is really lovely. It kind of coats the tongue and lingers.
It does get filtered one more time so that it will be clear, but what you're getting is originally we were going to release this that has a little bit more viscosity, but it's still, the finished product does have more viscosity than a lot of other Amaros, and that's because of the nature of dates.
Is there cocoa in this one?
No, so separately we have another project already called Cacao Nib, and it's also spirit-based. It's only 32% alcohol ABV, and it's also sweetened with dates, but it's single origin cocoa nibs from Camino Verde in Ecuador. So this is a collaboration with Dandelion Chocolate.
Oh my God, we were just talking about that.
Chocolate.
I love those guys.
Yeah.
Yes.
I got their advent calendar this year.
I like their hot
and it
chocolate.
was like the most beautiful thing.
So cool,
we
right?
We kept the box and we used the little containers as ornaments for our tree.
The Christmas tree thing.
So beautiful.
The Nutcracker thing, right?
No, this was like a box with stars, and I mean, it's
they
so
do the
gorgeous.
coolest stuff.
Yeah.
So like they made this Nutcracker. It was like a collaboration with the San Francisco Ballet, and they made this Christmas tree thing that unfolded like it was like origami galore, and each tray had different chocolates that were to the different songs of the Nutcracker.
Wow.
And it was bananas.
It's
My mom
wild
still
what
has
they
it at
do,
home
yeah.
because she's like, well, I can't throw away this
I
thing.
love the Nutcracker.
And it's expensive, but it's worth. It's like when you get it, you're like, oh, this is worth that because this is a piece of beautiful
we had
art.
that thing. We played all the Nutcracker Tchaikovsky music and
as one does,
and ate chocolates with each song.
Oh my God.
It was very interactive. It was my favorite kind of stuff.
I want to do that.
So
happy Passover again.
I'm a little drunk right now. Just by the way, as you down.
So in June,
wait. So the cacao, I want to just say this one more time. So
Cacao.
the cacao nib is a 375 milliliter bottle. It's only 2 ingredients. It's date and cacao nibs from single origin.
375 is
How do I
what is
pre-
that? 12 and a half.
How do I
ounces?
pre-order?
Half size.
Yeah, and it comes in a kit on Reserve Bar. That's how you can order it. With a chocolate bar that I had them make. It's another collaboration, but it's the same 2 ingredients: date and the single origin cacao nibs in a chocolate bar. So it's like 2 ingredients, one's liquid, one's solid.
Have
it's
you ever
very
had
cool.
a chance
Reserve
to travel?
Bar is where I have to go to get it.
Yeah, and I have a great
.com.
reservebar.com.
Thank
which
you for
is
saying that.
E-commerce.
Have you ever had a chance to travel and see the chocolate production? Like, have you ever seen that?
You mean like
the cacao actually
plant.
growing and
Yeah. Oh yeah, I've been to Venezuela.
You're talking to Elizabeth.
Yeah, I want. Can you give me
Faulkner.
like just 2 seconds about that? I
I've
want to
been to
hear about that.
Venezuela in the early '90s. That was so fun.
She was instrumental in overthrowing the government. There.
the cartel.
If it wasn't for her, the currency would have
we
been.
cooked for a lot of fancy people there in Caracas.
Wait, I just want to make sure we know how to order it and when to order it. Reservebar.com, and I'm going to be
In
able to
June.
order in June. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. I'm in.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah.
Go on.
And also the 2 other products will be on Reserve Bar, and then it'll be launching in California, Nevada, and then we'll get to New York and some other states.
Okay. And then who are you collaborating with on the chocolate? Or is that just your
Dandelion
Disney?
chocolate.
Oh, it is with Dandelion.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Yeah, yeah.
fantastic. Great.
Yeah, it's a project we've been working on together.
Great. Okay. on to Venezuela.
So Caracas.
Yeah, Venezuela, and I've been to that was with El Rey Chocolates, and then I used to work with I knew Robert Steinberg really well from Scharfenberger Chocolate.
Yeah.
Really well, and was
Like biblically.
no,
I'm
not like
just kidding.
Okay, we should stop drinking. We should really stop drinking right now. couple of shots.
She's like,
of
I know I'm really
80
well.
proof Amaro.
No, I loved how.
So you're in Caracas cooking for the royalty.
Listen, I love chocolate's one of my favorite ingredients. It's
Yes.
so fascinating. It goes with so many different other flavors. It's really wild to go to where it grows only in the equator belt. So I've been to Venezuela, Dominican Republic with dandelion. I've been to Madagascar.
Whoa.
And
Did you have is vanilla bean there like a real thing? Madagascar vanilla?
oh yeah.
And it grows from orchids? It's like, have you seen that?
Yes. And we had to go hand pollinate them while we were there. Yeah. And I've seen the whole curing process and
Oh my
it's
God,
really cool.
what a dream.
Yeah.
That's spectacular. Can
I
you
thought
ever
though
eat
that Madagascar, I thought when we got off the plane that it would
Smell
like vanilla and everybody would
No.
be making soaps and biscuits out of
Is that where they've
vanilla,
got the
but it's not
lemurs
like
that? Is that where they've got the lemurs that jump around, the beautiful little monkey things that are
Yes,
so cute?
my
Lemurs.
I didn't get to see them unfortunately. I had to arrive like a day later after the lemurs.
After the lemurs were
After the lemurs were gone.
after their bedtime. Sorry, I just you have. You're like an onion that you got to peel through. You've got a lot in there, and you've had a lot of very cool experiences. And
Sometimes I don't even know how I get into some of the places I've been.
And you're so modest, though. That's why I've been your hype man this whole time. You're so modest about everything. I mean, you've had multiple careers in this industry, and you're still going strong. And now you're making this delicious Amaro. I cannot wait.
Well, it's not. I mean,
to have more.
I
of
think
that.
every project that I'm involved in too is. It may sound like it's all fun and I'm always just having fun, but it's a lot of work.
Oh,
that
it's a
goes
ton
into
of
this, and
work.
it's also,
when I sober up, it's actually when I look back at the experience. I got to tell you,
It's a ton of
no,
work.
I mean, and I don't. I mean, like, it's a lot. It's a
Yes.
lot to tackle.
is
It's
it
not
worth
that
it?
simple to just say, "Oh, I'm Elizabeth Falkner. I'm a chef," and Heather will say like, "Well, you know Elizabeth Falkner. She's the one. She makes this good stuff." And I'm just like, but to translate, it was hard enough for people to go, "How could you be a pastry chef who can do savory? How can you go from that to that? How can you do that? How can you do all these things?" And I'm like, I don't know. It's just what I'm doing. That's what I like to do. And if I apply myself, I'm going to do it.
Because you're
And I wanna do it really
skilled
well.
and you persevere and you're smart and you're passionate about what you do and you're persistent and you have goals to just keep going with and sharing what you do with the world.
And it also, like, I kind of just sometimes go, you know, I do want to make that, and I'm not naive. I'm not going to just say, oh, I'm going to take over and make all we do Twinkies. That would be really hard to go back and say, you know. But
Although
if I wanted
Sherry
to do
Yard
that,
brought a Twinkie that was really good. I was like, she can do it.
she can do it. Yeah.
But you were talking about how, earlier, and we'll wrap this up soon, like that chefs are really good in crisis, but chefs are really resourceful. Mm-hmm. You know, we're just that type of being, you know, that we can kind of make anything happen, right? Yeah. I have a bottled cocktail, and I never wanted to learn so much about the liquor business that I know now. And you're probably learning so much about where you can sell it, how you can put a label on it, how much glass costs to put it in the bottle. Like, that's just not stuff that
all the layers of bureaucracy.
that you maybe wanted to even learn, but you have to learn to make that happen. And you want to put that product out there. You want to get it out there so you'll learn.
Yeah.
You know, that's just the kind of person you are. But I also feel like chefs have that innate thing in them where it's like, well, if I don't know how to do it, I'll figure it out.
It's kind of like you can't really be lazy.
Right.
If you're a chef, you can't just sit back and, I mean, things have to happen. It's also like, I think chefs are kind of like production assistants, like people that just make stuff happen.
Can I ask a question that's like,
We just, so you know, we have to wrap up.
yeah,
soon.
I can
Go
wrap
ahead.
this up. I've just, you know, if you focused on any of these things, you have the skill and success to drive it so far, but you've chosen to diversify into so many different areas. Like, you give up the ability to take any one individual thing and see it to this personal, like, you know, you could be rich from making pizza if you just made pizza, and you could be rich from making gummy bears if you just made gummy bears. Do you feel like it's worth it?
I don't know if that's true. I've never really been rich from any of these
because
projects.
you're moving on to the next thing. Is that something that you think is worth it for you from a fulfilling perspective, or you're like, look back and you think, I'm really happy because I spent my life and I've done all these things? Or do you think, shit, it would be nicer to be sitting on a yacht if I had just made pizza for like 10 years or something?
But how do you guarantee that?
You do.
making
You don't
pizza-
guarantee anything.
It's gonna make
I
you-
think by the time I had made pizza in Brooklyn, like I'd won that competition. That was such a crazy time in Naples. I know why I won that competition. I made a pizza. I was shopping around the farmer's market, found fennel, found some fennel sausage, got some aged provolone called Caciocavallo.
Love that stuff.
Fennel
On the
fronds.
horse.
Fennel pollen was my favorite ingredient at the time. Put that fennel pollen on at the end, and I went out and talked to the judges and said, my name's Elizabeth Falkner. I'm from San Francisco. My pizza's called Finocchio Flour Power. And one of the judges was a gay celebrity chef on television in Italy. And he was like, oh my God, like she's a unicorn. Where did she come from? She just said, like I used a term that I didn't even realize was a gay slang in Italian, which is Finocchio. And I was just in love with fennel. And and this guy, I mean, he was like, I love her. And it was and I knew I made my pizza in the perfect timing and stuff like that. But it was so different than like the food like
course.
Iron Chef stuff. It's like I just have to make a pizza. I'm cool. I can do this. I wanted to tell you that story, and now I totally forgot why I was telling you about my pizza life.
Just the idea that you.
So I feel like when I got to New York and I made pizza and I got a couple stars in the New York Times, which was great. But then I was like in a crazy, like I wasn't even in a business partnership. I was just the hired chef there. And then the owner and I were like really speaking different languages. And I was like, this is not going to work. And so I felt like I was like, what am I doing just making pizza every day too? Like that wasn't what I wanted to do my whole life.
I'm asking this selfishly because I'm sitting here and I'm like, I don't want to open a restaurant, but I have to open. I have to make a living. I got to do something.
Right.
And I love cooking, and I love opening restaurants. I love working in restaurants, but it's like getting punched in the face over and over and over again. And I feel like it's right on the tip of my tongue to figure it out, but it's such a love. It's a labor of love and passion. I wish people, like, if you're in the audience, like, come buy a goddamn slice of pizza because I need the $5 and I really appreciate it.
Nice, yeah. Well, I'm a huge fan of other people opening restaurants.
Me too. We support you, Dan.
Yes, I do make an effort to try to get to
We'll
everybody's
come in and buy your
restaurant,
pizza. But I think it's really smart to diversify, right? Like and we get to do a bunch of things because you have those skills. And I can't wait to see what you're going to do next.
Yeah, some people could get into farming and stuff too. I mean, taking care of the soil and all the things that we grow and raise is like, I mean, to me, that's where it's really at. Like, if I ever do make a chunk of money, I really just want to spend my time in the garden.
Yep.
Not on a yacht.
And that's where we'll find
Gardener.
Chef Faulkner. So we're going to have to wrap it
Do you have a
up.
garden right now, by the way?
Dan, we're wrapping it up.
Sorry, you gotta go. See you later.
I will have a pizza oven, though, that's for sure.
I can't thank you enough for being here. It's always good to see you.
Same.
It feels like seeing family when you're here. And good luck with everything. I have no doubt it's all going to be a success.
Thank you. So much fun, you guys.
Yeah.
Wrap it up.
We're wrapping it up. Wrapping it up. Season 2 of On the Line was recorded in Santa Monica, California at Operation Podcast. Thanks, Chase.
Our engineer and editor is Matthew Donahue. Our theme song is an original composition by John DeLucci. Thanks, Chef.
On the Line is produced by Cindy Augustine. Our co-producer and publicist is Jesse Gerstein.
Our social media and marketing guru is Kedzie Teller.
Thanks for listening.
To On the Line.